As I walk down the aisle, all I can think about is finally escaping the chaos of my family. But right after we say, I do, my mom taps her glass, stands up in front of everyone, and with a sweet little smile says she has one last surprise for my sister. Then she announces that the one thing I thought was mine, the only thing my late dad ever left me, is being passed over as a wedding gift upgrade. My sister laughs, my relatives clap, and my groom just looks at me with that calm, unreadable face that tells me something is very, very wrong. My name is Ava, and I am 26 years old. If you saw me walking down the street, you'd probably think I was just another girl with a normal life. Smile on my face, wedding ring on my finger, dreams tucked safely in my heart. But the truth is, I come from a world where love was a currency traded unfairly, where affection was conditional, and where my biggest mistake was believing that family meant safety. I grew up in a house where my father's silence was the only comfort I knew. He wasn't cold, just quiet, always worn down by long work hours, and the constant need to play peacemaker between me and the two storm clouds who ruled our lives. My mother and my older sister, Emily. Emily was the golden one, the daughter who shined so brightly that people assumed her glow came from within. But I knew better. Her glow came from the spotlight my mother held over her, blinding, constant, and so hot that it burned anyone who dared step near. And I was always the one scorched first. My mother used to say I was too sensitive, too emotional, too everything. If I cried, she mocked. If I succeeded, she minimized. If I wanted anything for myself, suddenly Emily needed it more. The only time I ever felt truly seen was when I was with my father. He would sneak me out for late-night drives, windows down, wind in my hair, letting me choose the music even though my taste never matched his. For a little girl who grew up learning how to shrink, those nights made me feel like the world wasn't quite so heavy. That's why, when cancer took him from us far too early, my world didn't just crumble, it disappeared entirely. And the last gift he ever gave me, the thing he was most proud to hand down, was his car. Not expensive, not flashy, just ours. A memory on wheels. After he died, my mother never let me forget that the car wasn't really mine. She would say things like, "It's just sitting there. Emily could actually use it." I held on to it anyway, not because I needed transportation, but because it was the final piece of him I had left. I thought she had finally accepted that, but standing there on my wedding day, with applause echoing around me, I realized something. In their eyes, nothing was ever really mine. And the way my husband's jaw tightened, it told me this betrayal was just beginning. The applause faded into a low hum as my mother motioned toward the venue doors, as if she was presenting royalty. My sister, draped in the most expensive dress she could buy just to outshine the bride, sauntered forward with a smirk. Her heels clicked like a countdown, each step ringing louder than the last. Behind her, parked right outside the glass windows, was my father's car, freshly polished, ribbon on the hood, keys dangling from my mother's fingers like a taunt. My chest tightened. It wasn't just a car. It was midnight laughter, roadside burgers, my dad's tired eyes softening when he looked at me. It was every goodbye I never wanted to say. Emily's laughter cut through me. "Relax, Ava," she said, waving dismissively. "Dad would have wanted it to be used by someone who actually matters." The guests chuckled, polite, awkward, unsure which sister to side with. But my mother smiled, proud of her cruelty. That smile was her signature, the one that always came right before she took something from me. Then I felt his hand slip into mine. My brand new husband, Noah. I had spent so long imagining this day, this moment, believing that marriage meant leaving all of this behind. But the way he stepped forward, the way he looked at my mother made something shift. He wasn't confused, he wasn't surprised, he was prepared. And suddenly I knew he had known about this. Maybe not all of it, but enough. He took a slow breath, his voice calm, too calm. "Funny," he said, directing his words to my mother, "I thought gifts were meant to be given, not stolen." A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd. My mother stiffened, still smiling but no longer comfortably. Emily scoffed, tossing her hair like a dismissive queen. "Oh, come on, Noah," she hissed quietly, loud enough only for us to hear. "Ava doesn't need it. We're doing her a favor." Every word sliced deeper. Need, matter, favor. I stared at Noah, searching his eyes for anything: love, outrage, even pity. But instead I saw calculation. Something private, something brewing. In that moment, the room began to tilt. Reality stretched into a thin, brittle thread ready to snap. I thought the humiliation was over. that this was the worst my mother could do to me on my happiest day. I was wrong. So very wrong. Because Noah wasn't going to let this pass. And whatever he planned next, it wasn't going to be subtle. The clinking glasses, the forced laughter, the shifting eyes, everything around me blurred into a single, suffocating haze. My mother lifted the car keys high like a trophy, motioning for Emily to take them. "Your sister should start her married life fresh," she declared. "You already have everything you need." Her voice dripped with satisfaction, as if she had just delivered a blessing rather than a wound. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the ribbon off that car and remind everyone here that it was my father who gave it to me. But instead, I felt my nails dig into my palm, grounding me in silence. Noah stepped away from me, not to comfort, not to protect. He walked toward the microphone on the stage. My heart stuttered. He wasn't a man who liked attention. He had told me countless times that speeches weren't his thing. But today, his posture was different, straight, unwavering, a quiet storm ready to break. "Since we're giving speeches and gifts," he began, voice crisp, cutting through the room like a blade, "I'd like to take a moment to thank Ava for letting me into her world." His eyes scanned the crowd, then landed on my mother, especially the part her family keeps trying to erase. My mother's smile trembled. Emily rolled her eyes, whispering something to a cousin who looked uneasy. Noah continued, "That car out there, Ava's father worked double shifts to buy it. He wanted her to have something of his that couldn't be replaced." He paused long enough for silence to thicken. Funny how some people forget what love actually looks like. Guests shifted in their seats. The tension was a living thing now, wrapping around the chandeliers, trembling across the table settings. My mother looked furious, but still, she kept her smile, a mask stapled in place. "Noah," she warned through clenched teeth, "today is not the day for—" "Oh, I think it is," he cut in. Then he did something that made everyone freeze. He pulled out a folder, thin, unassuming, sealed, and held it up. "Just in case anyone here wants to question who legally owns that car," he tapped it lightly. "Ava does, permanently. And this," he said, placing the folder flat on the table in front of my mother, "is the proof." Emily's laughter died instantly. And for one sharp, electrifying second, I almost believed the nightmare was finally ending. But Noah wasn't finished. And the look he gave my mother said the real reckoning hadn't even started yet. Silence spread through the room like spilled ink, slow, dark, impossible to ignore. My mother's fingers hovered over the folder as if it might burn her. Her jaw twitched, but before she could speak, Noah leaned closer, voice lowering into something almost intimate, terrifyingly controlled. "You see, Ava's father trusted her. He asked me to make sure this stayed with the person he loved most." A lie. My father never met Noah, but no one in the room knew that, except me. My pulse throbbed in my ears. What game was he playing? My mother's smile finally cracked, a fracture around the edges. "This is unnecessary drama," she muttered, but her voice shook. Emily, for the first time in her life, looked small, her confidence deflated like a balloon with a pinhole. She pushed the keys back toward the table, careless now, her earlier glee evaporating under the weight of Noah's stare. I should have felt vindicated, defended, safe. But instead, dread coiled tighter around my ribs. Because Noah wasn't doing this for me, he was performing. The shift in his expression was subtle, but I saw it, the way his eyes flickered not with love but with possession. Territory. As if my pain hadn't just become his crusade, it had become his trophy. And suddenly, I understood. He hadn't married me to build a new life together. He wanted to claim me from the people who thought they already owned me. He rested a hand on the back of my chair. Not a gesture of comfort, more like marking his place. "Ava has been stepped on long enough," he said, not even looking at me. "Her father entrusted her legacy to the wrong household." My mother bristled at the word wrong, as though insult had finally pierced through her armor. "We raised her," she hissed. "You controlled her," Noah corrected calmly. Gasps fluttered across the tables. Eyes darted between us, hungry for drama, desperate for allegiance. And in that crowd of faces, I stood alone, trembling behind a frozen smile. Noah slid the folder closer to me. "Ava deserves what belongs to her," he said, loud enough for the world to hear. But when his hand brushed mine, something inside me recoiled. This wasn't justice. This was someone else claiming ownership. And as my mother's eyes narrowed at Noah, something in her expression shifted, a cold, dangerous realization. He was no longer just her enemy. He was the threat in the room. And I was caught between them, with nowhere left to run. I sat there, still in my wedding dress, feeling like the lace around my chest was tightening into a noose. The room no longer looked like a celebration. It had morphed into a battlefield lined with floral centerpieces and champagne glasses. My mother and Noah stared each other down, two predators sizing up the other's weaknesses. And I was the prize in the center, wrapped in white and ignorance. For years, I believed escaping my family meant marrying someone who loved me enough to protect me. But slowly, horrifyingly, I started to see that Noah hadn't rescued me. He had just outbid them. My mother leaned back in her chair, a new kind of smile spreading, sharp and venomous. "Well," she said softly, "if Ava wants to walk away from the people who raised her, so be it." She gestured toward Emily, who had regained some of her smug composure. "We'll just make sure everything else she forgot to take with her ends up in the right hands." Her tone dripped with implication. My heart lurched. What else did she plan to strip away? Noah tilted his head, amused. "You mean the savings Ava's father left behind?" His voice turned razor-thin. "Because it would be a shame if the bank suddenly questioned why funds meant for his younger daughter were redirected, without consent." My mother's face blanched, just for a second, but enough. Enough for me to realize there was an entire war I had never been told about. Noah's gaze slid to me briefly, as if checking whether I understood the chessboard. I didn't, not fully, but I knew one thing. My pain had become their leverage. The guests watched with wide eyes, trapped between horror and entertainment. The lights felt too bright, spotlighting every crack in the facade of family love I had clung to for so long. I gripped the edge of my chair, nails pressing into the wood. I wasn't angry anymore, I was afraid. Afraid of what Noah had done in my name. Afraid of what my mother would do to retaliate. Afraid that I had traded one prison for another, and chained myself inside it forever. Noah reached for the microphone again, calm as ever. "We should toast," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings. And to old secrets finally staying buried." Buried. The word felt like a drop of ice water down my spine. My mother looked like she had been slapped. Emily stared between us, confused, suddenly unsure of which side she should stand on. And that's when I realized there was something buried between these two enemies. Something that had everything to do with me, and I had no idea what was about to be unearthed. The wedding carried on after that, mechanically, nervously, like everyone was afraid one wrong word might detonate the room. My mother retreated into cold silence, calculating behind her glassy stare. Emily clung to her new possession, attention. And Noah, he held my hand for the rest of the night, not with tenderness, but with ownership. Each squeeze reminded me, I belonged to him now. The music, the dancing, the smiles, all of it was a performance stitched over a tear no one dared to acknowledge. But long after the guests left and the lights dimmed, I stood alone in the parking lot. The ribbon still clung to my father's car, fluttering in the night breeze like a flag raised in the wrong country. I traced the hood with my fingertips, remembering every moment inside it that felt like freedom. My father had always told me, "The world will try to take pieces of you, Ava. Hold tight to what's yours." I finally knew what he meant. Inside the venue, I could hear Noah speaking quietly with the manager, discussing security and access. He wanted control before the ink on our marriage certificate was even dry. And suddenly, I understood why my mother had always clung so tightly to Emily. Obsession disguised as love. Different methods. Same chains. I opened the car door and slid into the driver's seat. The leather still held the ghost of his cologne. The key, my key, fit perfectly into the ignition. No folder, no paperwork, no loud declaration could ever define what this car meant. Only memory could. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I didn't drive away. I didn't run, not yet. I just sat there, breathing in the past and exhaling the future. I realized my revenge wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be explosive. It would be quiet, patient mine. The kind you build one choice at a time, until you finally look the people who tried to control you in the eye and say, "No." When Noah finally came looking for me, I wiped my hands over the steering wheel like I was claiming it all over again. I stepped out, closed the door gently, and smiled at him. A real smile this time. Because he didn't know it yet, but I was done being owned. This was my silent revenge, and this is Revenge Book. Where are you watching this video from? Let me know in the comments.